What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the X-Men, but now it's time for us to jump back over to some more, Excalibur. And we pick up with issue number 53. Yes, we're only covering another single issue in this video for Excalibur. Now, when it comes to this issue, it's really more of re-establishing the friendship between Captain Britain and Spider-Man. If you have read some earlier books that had involved their team up, you would know that those two characters have been on and off friends for a good while by this point in Marvel Comics. And so it's the book saying, hey, let's not forget that there was a point in time where Captain Britain and Spider-Man were actually partners. They were actually good friends, and technically they still are. And really, for Captain Britain, he looks up to Spider-Man because he says Spider-Man taught him what it's like to be a hero. And so the opening pages of this book is really more of, well, Megan and also Captain Britain having that couple moment. You know, when your girlfriend or wife finds that old photo album, there's some old embarrassing photos in there. She's running away because, I don't know, it's fun. And then you're chasing after her to get that photo album away because, again, there's some embarrassing photos of you. But once you have the two characters sit down together and look through some old photos, well, you have Megan pull out an old photo of, well, Peter Parker and also Captain Britain. And she asks him like, hey, who is this guy? And he says, hey, that is Peter Parker. That is the guy that taught me everything to be a hero. Like that man right there taught me what it's like to be a superhero. And this leads into the flashback where we kind of, again, re-establish that friendship, but also kind of see what Captain Britain meant by that when he said, Spider-Man taught me what it's like to be a hero. Now, the starting point of this flashback is really more of Spider-Man really going after some AIM agents, better known as Advanced Idea Mechanics. Now, it's just Spider-Man beating their butts. Like it's a normal Monday, Tuesday, whatever day for Spider-Man. But while doing that, Captain Britain is there. Now for Captain Britain, because at this point in the flashback, he was a brand new hero. It was just him watching Spider-Man fight against the bad guys, but also kind of learning how Spider-Man fights. Because again, Peter Parker, when he fights against his different enemies, we always see him kind of cracking some random jokes. And for Peter Parker, it's to kind of throw his enemies off in the middle of the battle. And so once you have, Peter Parker being able to take out a few guys, you then have Captain Britain ask him like, hey, why did you do those different things? And for Peter, he says, because it throws them off. It gives you the better advantage in that battle against them. Now, after that, you have Captain Britain take the guys over to a location for the cops to find them, but you then have our two heroes go their separate ways. Now, for Captain Britain and Spider-Man, they have no idea of each other's true identities. But again, they're kind of still close at this point in time. Now, to get a better idea for you guys of like what was their friendship back in the past like, you see, when it came to Captain Britain, he had studied a short period of time over in the States. And so while being over there, he was able to be a roommate for Peter Parker. The problem was Captain Britain kind of, well, grew up with money. And the reason why I'm saying that because he didn't really learn how to properly take care of a place on his own. He always had maids and butlers. And so for Peter Parker, when you have Captain Britain come back home as Brian Braddock and he walks in the apartment, we see the entire apartment is a complete wreck because of Brian and his not really clean habits. And for Peter Parker, it's not okay that their apartment is a complete wreck. Now for Captain Britain, he wants to hire a maid. But for Peter, it's the whole idea that you should not have to hire a maid to clean up your mess. It's your mess and you should take care of it. And so you have Peter walk away very angry at Captain Britain. Now, the trend kind of does continue that Peter Parker is having a hard time dealing with Brian in this flashback because the following day after that, you have Mary Jane, Peter, and also Brian go to a diner. Now, for Brian, to him, it's the perfect time to have a drink early in the morning. But for Peter and Mary Jane, they're like, dude, no. Plus, this is a diner. All they have is like coffee and maybe soda, and that's it. Now, you do have Brian order a coffee, and while you have the three characters talking, you have some other exchange students nearby causing a scene in the diner. Now, for Peter, he says leave it alone. But for Brian, he can't do that. Because again, it's Brian kind of thinking that he should be able to handle any kind of problems without actually thinking about the after effects of you dealing with those problems. And so he is about to start a whole fight in the middle of this diner. A diner that one, Peter Parker knows the owner, and because of the owner knowing Peter Parker, he lets Brian slide this time. But if he did not know Peter Parker and did not know Brian, they would be banned from that diner completely. And most likely, if they had gotten into a fight in that diner, they could have caused a lot of damage to that place, especially for Brian, who has powers, by the way. And really, the idea of him having powers is going to be very important at the end of this video. And I kind of want you to remember this moment right here as we work our way to that big moment at the end of the video. Now, later on that night, you do have Spider-Man and Captain Britain meet up with one another for another night of crime fighting together. But let's not forget that Peter Parker and Brian Braddock don't know that each other are actually superheroes. But while you have Spider-Man and Captain Britain there together, Spider-Man is kind of upset that Captain Britain had arrived late. But you also have Spider-Man realize that there's something wrong with Captain Britain. Like maybe he's going through things, but Captain Britain does not want to talk about it. He flies away. He wants to go out there and fight against some criminals. Now, for Spider-Man, he kind of hates the idea of dealing with other people's problems, but then it's a flashback of his earlier days as a hero, where he was also adjusting to the role of being Spider-Man, but also remembers what Uncle Ben had told him and kind of knows like, okay, you know what? Let me stick around Captain Britain, still kind of guide him to help him learn what it's like to be a hero, because it's a huge adjustment in your life once you receive those powers in that suit. Now, you have Captain Britain fly away without Spider-Man. And with him doing that, he does find a group of thugs who are technically robbing a lab. Now, we do learn that this group of thugs are actually the same exchange students from earlier that was causing that scene at the diner. And really, this is the point where you have Captain Britain realize that when it comes to being a hero, you really have to focus on how you use your powers. Now, I'm going to explain why at the end of this section, but when you have Captain Britain arrive, he realized that this group here is trying to steal some kind of tech that would give the ability to alter the genetics of the human race to turn them into a different kind of race. Because we learn that this group of exchange students are actually dogs or werewolves. They call themselves the Litter, which honestly is a horrible name. But they feel like humans are doomed to fail at the end. And so they feel like to save the human race, why not go ahead and change them genetically into all dogs? Because dogs are loyal, dogs are trustworthy, and that is what the human race needs. Now, you have Spider-Man and Captain Britain being able to work together to fight against these dog creatures. But then at the end of the battle, you have Captain Britain realizing that he has to hold back when he's fighting against certain enemies like these guys right here. Because when he goes to punch the female of the group, she gets seriously injured because he was not holding back. He used a lot of his power in that one single punch and doing some serious damage. And so you have everybody stop what they're doing. You have Peter or somebody call an ambulance and they take her away to the hospital. And that was kind of like the moment where Captain Britain realized that he has to watch out when it comes to using his powers. Now, after that, you do have our two heroes go back to their apartment. Now, really, Captain Britain, he does wander around the city for a while. When he goes back home finally, Peter Parker had packed everything up and said, "You got to leave because you got problems. You have a drinking problem. You want to get in fights all the time. Like, you're not really able to understand how the real world works. And I feel like you need me to do this to kind of help you realize that you're not truly living in the real world. You're still living in this world where you have everybody else do things for you and you don't really know how to handle problems on your own." And so once you have Captain Britain hear those words from Peter Parker, it kind of taught him what it's like to be a hero or how to be a person in the real world, actually. And so at the end of the video, or this video, sorry, you do have Captain Britain kind of take those words to heart. He takes his things, he leaves. Now we go back to the present day, and it's really him telling Megan this story because he's saying to her, like, Peter Parker showed me, how to be a hero, showed me how to be a man. And so the book kind of ends on that note. I kind of like it though, because again, it does reestablish that friendship between Peter Parker and Captain Britain. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.